Hello folks, today we are going to talk about designing a visual presentation. So just some um, concepts that you guys can use while you're working on the visual component of your research presentation. So if you would please open up the Designing a Visual Presentation PowerPoint and follow along with me. Alrighty, so please go to the first slide. Thank you. Please. Okay. So here we have the principles of design. I'm aware that this text is nigh on unreadable, but the text will be in later slides, so don't worry about it right this second. We have contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And these four things together, if used properly, help make a really good visual presentation. So on the next slide, first we have contrast. So contrast is what contrast does is it uses unique elements in a design that should stand apart from each other. And one way to do this is using contrast. So good contrast in a design, which can be achieved by using elements like color and size, allows the viewer's eyes to flow naturally. So you can do this with color. You can have pops of color with contrasting colors like orange or red and green, or orange and blue, things like that, that really make your design more impactful. You can do this with tone and value, which is how dark or light the color is. So you can have a dark gray and a light gray, which is a more subtle way of showing contrast. Size and shape, different sizes of things, different shapes of things, and lastly, direction. So you can have something going from left to right, you can have something going up and down, anything that sort of breaks up your presentation a little bit and makes it a little more interesting. Contrast is also really important when it comes to reading a slide, for instance. Like, for instance, this slide in particular has a dark gray background with white text. It also has a part that has a white background with dark gray text, and both of these things contrast well and make it really easily readable. So on to the next slide, we have repetition. You should establish a style design for each element in a design and use it on similar elements. This creates consistency within your overall presentation. For example, you may have noticed that most of my presentations have consistent design themes, so feel free to look at older PowerPoints for examples of this. Now, I'm not saying my PowerPoints are the end-all be-all of, like, this is exactly what a PowerPoint should be like. We have to copy Miss Passahow exactly. That's not what I'm saying. That I do try and use repetition a lot and have the same basic setup for each slide. It helps it flow better. For instance, in this particular slideshow, I have all my text on the left side and all my images on the right side. So that's a design element that I use to keep things consistent and flowing well. Next, we have alignment. Proper alignment in a design means that every element is connected to another element. Alignment allows for cohesiveness, which means nothing feels out of place or disconnected. So you should pick an alignment that you feel flows well and works with your subject, like the examples to the right, and you shouldn't just be placing things in random places. So you could choose to left align your things, as I have done in this particular presentation. You could center align something. You could right align it. You could have your elements balanced at the top. You could have them balanced at the center, or you could have them balanced at the bottom. So either way, just making sure that there's a good balance of things and they're not all cluttered to one side or just randomly in different places. It makes things a little more cohesive and a little easier to read. And last but not least, we have proximity. So if two elements are related to each other, they should be placed in close proximity to each other. This minimizes clutter, emphasizes organization, and increases viewer comprehension. So for instance, if you have text that goes with a picture, make sure that text is aligned with the picture. So for the example, you may have some text like in that leftmost box there, and then an image right next to it, and then more text about the image right after it. You don't want to have your text all the way over here and your images all the way over here. Your viewer, your audience may not be able to connect them if they're too far apart. So now we're going to look at some example slides, and I am going to tell you some good and bad things about each slide, about how it uses the design elements. Come back to me. There we go. So this first slide is kind of a reporting information slide for a place. This was done for an older assignment when I was teaching 1013. I used this as an example for them. So good things about this slide, the contrast of the text and background is good, maybe a little bit boring. Black on white is a great contrast, but maybe a light gray or a grayish blue would have been a better choice to go along kind of with the theme, of things. And just to provide some color in the presentation. I think there's a little too much text on the slide. I think this could be broken up into all the text that's on that chunk right there could be broken up into two different slides. The image placement of the map could be better. The image placement at the bottom is okay, but there's that weird white space in between the two images where I could have put something else. But there is good proximity. The text that relates to the image is directly below the image. So some good things and some bad things. Generally an okay slide, but it needs a little bit of work. Next, we have a slide on New Zealand. So lots of good information here. Population, geography, the government, major industries, official languages, all the things that you kind of need to know about New Zealand when you're presenting it. It's got a good amount of text. I don't think it's too much text. I think the bullet points summarize things well and give the presenter an opportunity to expand on it. There are two things that I would change. Also I really like the contrast and I really like the background. I like the gradient in the background. It gives it some interest. Two things that I would change is I would move the picture of Prime Minister Ardern over to the left, underneath the map of New Zealand, so that all the text is aligned and all the images are aligned. The second thing is that there's no textual explanation of the kiwi thing at the bottom. In the presentation, it was explained that, you know, the kiwi bird is the main bird of New Zealand. New Zealanders are called kiwis, and a kiwi fruit is the only one of the three that you can eat. But I think it should go on its own slide and kind of have that information there, and maybe add a little bit more information about each one. So that is that slide. And last but not least, we have the Dreadfort, so we're back to Game of Thrones. Again, I like the contrast of the background to the text. I like the gradient. But I feel like it's too texty. There's a lot of text going on, and I think the images could be rearranged and maybe resized. I think this could be, again, made into 2 slides. So I think the image of the Dreadfort itself is a little too big. It could be cropped or shrunk a little bit. I think Roose and Ramsay could be closer together, maybe next to each other, maybe both underneath the picture of the Dreadfort, and then all the text would be left aligned. So yeah, that's kind of my judgment on those slides. Again, if you have any questions about your research presentation, if you have ideas that you want to run by me, if you have questions about design principles and how to use them, feel free to email me. Like that. So I will see you guys next week in class for presentation time, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.